All right, welcome back to the shop. So here's another M1161 that we finished. Actually finished this one a little while back, and the owner's waiting to ship it back. It's going back to the East Coast. He's waiting to ship it back until he can get a canopy made for the top. He's dealing with my upholstery guy to get that done. So it's been sitting here for a little while. It's kind of collecting cobwebs. We finished it, I think about, I don't know, a month and a half ago at least. But this one took a lot of work. This one, she's a nice looking truck. But it just had a lot of stuff going on with it. So let's start with the engine compartment. So coming in here to the engine compartment, we did an engine oil change, changed engine oil filter. We changed the hydraulic filter, which is for the steering system, front and rear, and also for the brake booster. We fixed a leak down here on the steering pump. The suction line, or the inlet line on it, was loose and it was leaking pretty bad. So we changed that as well. We changed the transmission fluid, we changed the transfer case fluid, both of which had water in them, traces of water. We also changed the fluid in both differentials, and then we changed the fan belt on this one. We also had an issue on the other side over here on the fan belt. It was rubbing against the water the water coolant line going from the side of the engine over there to the radiator. The belt was rubbing into that, so that wasn't good. We changed the we repaired the wastegate valve on the turbo. It was frozen, and also on the back of the turbo right here on the exhaust output or outlet, it had a bad leak there. We had to actually buy new bolts for it, and I had to source a gasket for that. So we fixed that exhaust leak. So you can see down here the brake proportion valve. We had to change that. It had the same problem that mine had, my 1161, where it didn't have any rear brakes. It only had front brakes. So if you put this thing in four-wheel low, you can't stop it with the foot brake. You'd have to grab the parking brake as well, or shut the engine off. So we changed that, and actually this one here was put together. I don't know if it was put together wrong or what was wrong, but the seals inside were rolled around and pinched in there. So I don't think this thing ever had rear brakes from day one. And then also coming down to the front wheel caliper. This is the caliper we did a video on rebuilding a caliper. This left front caliper was leaking. Also the two of the bleeder valves on it were also leaking as well. So we resealed it, we changed those bleeder valves, and that's fine now. We changed all four airbags on here, the suspension airbags. All four of them were bad. We did all four CV axles. We changed both boots on them. On the front differential, as we always do, we change the circlips and we change the seals where the CVs go into the differential, and that way to hopefully keep those from popping out. And we also changed the boots on both of the front upper ball joints. Both of them, the joints were in great shape, but the boots were rotted out, so we just changed the boots on those. And then coming down here to the drive shafts, both drive lines were bent, most likely just from the forklifts when they pick them up at GovPlanet. So I had to take both of them down to my driveline shop. This guy John over at John's, I think it's John's Differential and Driveline or something like that in Lake Elsinore, does a really good job. He rebuilt both these drive shafts for me for a pretty reasonable price, so as well as the windshield wiper blades. We changed the seals around here on the windows, on the window frames. It was actually missing on both the windows, so we sourced the right size for that, put that on. The hinges for the windshields were both totally frozen up, but it took a lot of work to get these back out, and we got them freed up, we got them lubricated, so those shouldn't be a problem anymore. And then coming here into the cab, the start switch was frozen up. It was like almost totally frozen up. You could still actuate it, but it would stick. I had one in the shop, and so I replaced that, so it's working good now. And then we also put a key switch over here, put a remote key lock out, took out the radio the comm mounts, and just put a flat plate here. Coming over to the rear steering console, the toggle switch was broken, so we put a new toggle switch in that, got that fixed up okay. We also changed the square mirror on here. I believe this one was broken off. It was just there were just fragments of the mounts left on, if I remember right on this one. We also added a couple of missing roll cage pins. Every once in a while we find these with missing pins, so we've got a good source for those. All right, coming down on the right side here, we added a cable pull type air drain valve to the rear tank, just to make that real easy to get to, and keep your tanks drained. We also changed the tires on this one. This is the one that I did the video on, where we used my press in the shop there to press the run flats out. We put these tires on, these what they call Ranger all-terrain Thunders. They seem to be a really nice tire. They have a really good looking tread on them. It almost looks like the original tread. It's even got some side tread on there for when you get in the sand. They seem like a really decent tire. Overall, so far I've been really happy with them. You can see right here the old tires. Here's the run flat inside the old tire. You can see that just thick, heavy rubber in there. I forget what that weighed. I weighed it. I forget, it was like, I think it was 40 pounds is what that weighs. So when this tire and that run flat is on the rim, it weighs 100 pounds. So if you could pull that weight off times 4, you're saving a lot of weight on these things. Also, the ride is a lot better. I took this one out on the road after pulling those run flats out, and it ran a lot smoother on the highway. The seatbelt was frozen up, so we replaced the seatbelt. This fuel tank here on the right side, it had a leak, so we had to remove it and repair that. So we got this tank all set up. It's holding fuel fine. I installed a C-pillar on it for him, and also the crossbars, the side crossbars. And like I said, he's waiting for my upholstery guy to make a top for him for it. The guy's pretty busy, so I don't know how long he's gonna have to wait, but it may be a little while. And then right over here, right by the driver's seat, we added a cable pull style tank drain to the front air tank, the one that's built into the frame here, the one for the CTIS system. And then coming back here to the rear suspension, on both sides, so you have a sensor here on all 4 wheels, and this is for the air ride control, and this right here senses how high the vehicle is. So it hooks up onto this anti-sway bar, it goes up here through these heim joints up to the sensor, and so it knows how high it's sitting, and that's how it's able to level itself to your preset settings. On both sides, this clamp here was broken. They were just rusted through, and they just deteriorated. The metal on it deteriorated, and the clamps just were ripped off. So replaced both of those. The lower ball joint on this one was bad. It was bent really bad, so we changed it out. Coming around to the rear steering. So now the rear steering is back to how it was originally made, and it has the safety locks on here. So whenever the rear steering has to be disengaged, either by your exceeding 5 miles an hour, or if you have the system turned off, these locks automatically close, and then they can only be released if you have to have air built up in the system, and then you have to be in first gear or reverse, and be doing under 5 miles an hour, and then the steering system, it sends air to a cylinder up here that releases these locks so that you can do the rear steering. If any of these things aren't met, then the valve opens up and the air, it releases the air, and then these struts up here automatically, there's what it is, they're dual 60-pound gas charged spring struts, and they will close these locks so that this rear system cannot steer without when you don't want it to steer. They also have the holes drilled in up for the pins. I still have to put the pins in here, and that way that's even a second safety measure, so that if the pins are in here, this thing cannot release. So if you want to use the rear steer, you have to take these pins out, and you have to have all the parameters met to be able to use the rear steering. If you look down here, you can see the left rear lower ball joint, we changed that, and then you can see both airbags in the rear have been changed, as well as all 4 of the CV boots in the rear. All right, and coming up here into the back end where the batteries are, you can see we changed both batteries. We changed this positive clamp was bad, we changed it. We added a battery disconnect on here, just a manual one, just to keep, that way if this thing's gonna sit for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month at a time, you can come out here and shut off your battery disconnect, and you don't have to worry about any parasitic draw killing your batteries. We changed the one-way check valves for the suspension system. We changed both of those. We just automatically do those now. On the air compressor, we put a filter on it. We changed it out. It was all rotted out, probably the original filter. We also changed a 50-amp breaker in here. It seems like whenever these things have seen salt water, as this one obviously did, those breakers seem to be the hardest hit, and that's just because breakers, just how they work is by heat. The more amperage you draw through them, they create more and more heat. When they get to a certain amount of heat, that's what trips it to blow, to blow the breaker. So just the effect of the heat on the metals that they make the breaker out of, and then with the salt water, both of those tend to just really be hard on these breakers. So that's kind of a common thing we see on these. If we've seen one that's had salt water damage and systems aren't working on them, like the air compressor, stuff like that, we automatically know right away to go to these self-resetting breakers. All right, so that's it for Growler number 111. She's a pretty nice Growler now. She needed a lot of work when it got here. We've got it all done. It should be a really reliable vehicle for the owner. I talked to him about this, and he is going to be buying an off-road trailer for this thing, little smaller off-road camp trailers, and I think this thing's going to do really good. It was going to be really fun taking this thing out with that trailer and camping with this thing. So anyways, I appreciate you watching. Please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. I've got more stuff coming up. These two Humvees just rolled in last week, and I'm going to be doing some work on those. Those aren't going to get a full restore. They're just going to, I believe the owner just wants me to get them running, kind of make sure that just the basic systems are working on it, and then those get shipped up to Illinois. So anyways, thanks for watching, and have a good day.